The Box of Delights by John Masefield, Chapter 6, Part 2. The midnight was still enough, save for the babble of the brook and the occasional running patter of drops from the ash trees. Now above these noises, from out to the north by the straw yards, came the cry of wolves in pack. All mad, Kay thought, like the bark of foxes, but much more awful. Come with me, she said, giving him her hand. As he took it, he felt himself lifted from the grass, so that he glided beside her up the stream to the pool from which the stream rose. Near this, to the right, was an oak of great age, which Kay had always called King Charles's oak, and the country people called the she-oak. It was a hollow with age, but the mighty shell was still alive. There are wolves, she said. Look. There in the moonlight, racing over the grass to them, were the wolves in pack, with their ruffs up and their eyes glaring. The oak tree opened behind Kay. The woman stepped within it, drawing Kay in with her. Instantly, they were within the quiet tree in a room paneled with living oak wood and hung with tapestries of oak in which the birds were alive. Kay marveled, for the birds came out of the tapestries and perched upon his hands. They want some strawberries, the woman said. Won't you give them some? Please, I haven't any, Kay said. Ah, here they are, the woman said. Now you can give them some. Out of a little door in one of the walls, a red squirrel came cocking. With very bright eyes, he carried his forepaws in cabbage leaf heaped with strawberries. He hopped down to the table and offered the leaf to Kay, who took the berries and gave them to the birds. It was charming to have the little birds claw upon the fingers and to see the little bills peck the berries. Squirrel would like some nuts, the woman said. Bring some nuts, Mole. 3 black moles came swiftly out of the floor, each bearing dock leaves, one with beech nuts, one with walnuts, and one with filberts. The squirrel cracked open and ate as he sat on Kay's shoulder, then tried to drop the shells down his neck. Now Kay would like some supper, the woman said. For indeed, Kay, things are not going too well. When the wolves have the best of us underground and are still running, indeed, they were running. They were sweeping past the tree with every kind of shriek and madness, but Kay, in the happy oak, never bothered about the wolves. For the woman was now grown young before his eyes. She was all bright, shining, and beautiful, and humming a most beautiful tune, which brought more and more birds out of the tapestries, so that perhaps there was no kind of bird known to Kay not fluttering near him. Whenever he thought, I don't see a goldcrest, or there's no golden-crested wren, or I don't see a lesser spotted woodpecker, lo, that bird would be hopping onto his finger. These birds are lovely, he said. However do you make them so tame? Oh, I have a way with them, she said. But tell me now, which season do you like the best, Kay? I like them all, he said. I suppose I like April best on the whole. Look then, she said. All one side of the room changed to a rolling red cloud, stretching down the blackthorn hedge where a brook was running. The blackthorn was in blossom where there were marsh marigolds in the mud near the brook and a few primroses and dead grass at the bank. Nearer to Kay, at his feet, a couple of lambs were nibbling. A patch of daffodils grew in the grass. It was April beyond all doubt. A blackbird flew suddenly with a chattering cry onto the blackthorn near him. Before the spray had ceased to shake, a missel thrush settled beside him. The spray swayed and settled, and then the blackbird sang. Out of the many-colored earth that eats the light and drinks the rain come beauty, wisdom, mercy, mirth that conquer reason, greed, and pain. My laughter ripples in the corn, in the green leaf it claps its wings. In summer's rose it blows a horn, in brook and flying cloud it sings. Come, missel thrush with merry will, ring out your jolly notes again, and April will come up the hill, a million bright green little men. As soon as the blackbird had sung, the missel thrush lifted up a magical voice and sang an answer. The withered thorn trees on the hill mope on the rabbit bare and dry. I flute their thin blood to a thrill of quicking bud as I go by. The dormouse, drowsy to the soul, in warmth of moss where he lies, uncurls his beechnut bound roll, and is all dart and is all eyes. And out along the hedge the curled green little buds and lambkins bite. Spring the blackbird curls in the world, and all the cherry trees are white. Spink, spink, said a chaffinch. There's a very good song to me. Oh, sing the song again, the Jenny Wren, so the Mistlethunch sang. And she sang, and the squirrel and the moles and the most beautiful little mice and 7 little foxes brought Kay strawberries, raspberries, red and white currants, ripe mulberries, plump blackberries, red and yellow cherries, black cherries, walnuts, beech nuts, hazelnuts, filberts, little round radishes, little pointed wild strawberries, sloes all cracking with ripeness, a mushroom for a relish, a chip cut from a turnip, an apricot from the south ball, and a peach almost bursting its skin. Then there came blue grapes, black grapes, yellow grapes, almonds, raisins so ripe and so sweet and so good, and the animals were so charming, offering them on the dock leaves, held in front of her paws. And all of the time the beautiful woman hummed. At last she said, "They have taken Cole, they have taken Maria, and they will take others, but don't lose courage, Kay. Even if the wolves are running, you will beat the wolves, won't you, Kay?" Kay said he would, and at once there he was back at his bed at Seekings in daylight, with Peter saying, "It's about time you woke. You've been snoring like a stuck pig. Have you had a nightmare?" When he came down to breakfast, there was no letter from his guardian, but there was a newspaper, and the children pounced upon the news for the burglary at the palace. Regrettable incident at Tatchester Palace. Alleged burglary. We are informed that a serious and very successful burglary was carried out at Tatchester Palace last evening. According to the bishop's laudable custom before Christmas, the palace was the scene last night of a large children's party with a Christmas tree and other festivities. While these were in progress, the burglars, who it is thought were assisted by someone secreted within the palace, went through the guest rooms and escaped with considerable booty, including the jewel cases of 5 ladies who were guests of his Grace's sister. The police preserve a professional precedence over the affair, but it is understood that they regard the work as that of smart London men, and are present engaged upon exhaustive inquiries. It is understood that dramatic developments may be expected shortly. "But that's what they always say," Peter said. They talked among themselves about how lovely it would have been if they could have caught the burglars at work and held them up with pistols till the police came. Kay was very much worried about Maria still being absent, but Maria's brother and sister said that she would be all right. "She always falls on her feet," they said. "Don't you worry about Maria." But Kay did worry. As soon as breakfast was over, he went across to see the inspector of police. "And so you haven't seen Miss Maria?" the inspector said. "Ha, that doesn't look so well. But you leave the matter in my hands, Master Kay, and I'll make what inquiries are called for. And your guardian, I hear, hasn't come back." "No," Kay said. "That's another point. She ought to have been back. She started out yesterday to catch a certain train, and she didn't come by the train. We have had no word from her since." "So I understand," the inspector said. "How could you know?" Kay said. "Well, in the law, Master Kay," the inspector said, "it's our duty to hear all things. Information received, we call it. But I will put through the necessary inquiries, Master Kay. You leave the matter to the bloodhounds of the law, and depend upon it, information will be received." Kay was cheered by this confident manner, and by his repeating, "The simple explanation is always the last thing thought of." When he was reaching Seekings, Ellen said, "Oh, Master Kay, your guardian's brother has rung up. There was so much fog and such a crowd at the station yesterday that she didn't start, but went back to her brother. And 1 or 2 other little things have sprung up since. So she won't be back today, but she may be back tomorrow. And she sends her love and tells you not to worry, and that she hopes you're having a good holiday." "Well, that's a jolly good thing," Kay said. And being much cheered by the news, he went upstairs to get his catapult and some bullets. He kept these little secret hiding places underneath his bed. After he had put them in his pocket, he looked out the window toward King Arthur's camp, and there was fields below the camp, and he saw the gleam of water. He ran down onto the others and said, "I say, it's splendid, the floors are out. Well, go for a mudlark. We'll go out on our ships and sail them to the floods." But both Peter and he had received ships from the bishop's Christmas tree. Kay had a ship called the Hero, which went by a methylated spirit. Peter had a ship called the Pirate Ship and Royal Fortune, which went by clockwork. And Kay, in addition to these, had an old cutter, which he called Captain Kidd's Fancy. "We'll launch these and christen them properly," they said. "It's perfectly lovely," Kay said. that the floods are out. We'll pretend that these ships are real ships, and we'll provision them with almonds, raisins, and chocolates, and we'll all take long sticks so as to poke them off until they get stuck somewhere. And then we'll take sandwiches, cakes, and hard-boiled eggs, and we won't come back till tea time. I've got some lovely little things that would do for the ship, said Susan. In the stocking which they gave me from the tree, there were those little tiny wooden barrels filled with hundreds of thousands. They were just sort of barrels that go on the ships. She fetched the little barrels, and they divided them up among the ships, and they put raisins and currants and bits of biscuit in each barrel. I vote, Jemima said, that the other barrel shall be filled with ham, which we will pretend is salt pork. They don't take salt pork anymore, Peter said. They take pemmican, which is beef chopped up with fat and raisins and chocolate and beer and almonds and ginger and stuff. It must be a sickening mess, but it's very nourishing, and it's supposed to be the ancient Britons had it. They could take a piece as big as a currant and live for a week. As there weren't enough barrels to provision the ships, Kay got some matchboxes and egg collector pillboxes, which they filled with food. Jemima produced some drapes and patterns of woolen goods. The ships ought to have these, she said. They'd be exactly the size of the thick blankets for the little sailors. I'll tell you what we might do, Susan said. When we get the water, we might take a little plank and make a landing stage of it, and take some of those little flags that we've got, and we'll pretend that these ships are Christopher Columbus's ships going down to discover. We'll tie up the ships to the landing stage, and Jemima shall be the Queen of Spain, and Kay had better be the King of Spain, and we will all be monks and nuns and people and sing the Columbus, and then we'll push him out into the Atlantic. That would be a good idea, Kay said, and then presently, when we could be Sir Francis Drake, and some of us could be Indians, and some of us could be Spaniards, and then one of us is going to be burnt by the Inquisition, and just at the end we'll rush and kill the Spaniards, and take all their treasure and sail away to Plymouth. And we could fire a red-hot shot, to tell the truth. If we don't get the cannon too wet, you see, we can't use gunpowder, but we could get the caps from the toy pistols and load the guns with those. And then, if you put a match in the torch hole, they sometimes go off with quite a bang. You better have some anchors, Jemima said. All ships have anchors, otherwise they wouldn't be able to stop. You've got to be jolly careful with anchors, with ships so little as these, Kay said. Very often you can try anchoring little ships like these, and the anchor will pull them right under the water. They made ready ships. Peter found a plank and rigged up some flags upon it for the landing stage. Ellen brought sandwich cake, boiled eggs, fruit, and ginger beer. Kay had a little bottle of methylated spirit from the engine. And then they went out into the woodshed, and Joe, who gave each one of them a long wand or stick for poking on the ships, they got stuck. And then, when they went bright, sunny, clearing weather, with no noise of running water everywhere, when they came to the meadows, there were pools in all the hollows, and many of the molehills were bubbling up water like running springs. When they came to a suitable place on the mill stream, they fixed their landing stage, and the chicken poked about among the banks with their sticks. Well, Kay and Peter got the methylated spirit furnace to make steam and the boiler. Kay had a box of delights in his inner pocket, which sometimes poked his hand inside to be sure that it was there. Presently, all was ready. The King and Queen of Spain, with the monks and nuns and people, sent off Christopher Columbus on his voyage, and away the ships went, down the stream, with the children following, shouting and cheering, and poking them clear of the banks with their sticks. When they had gone about half a mile down the stream, Susan, who was looking up at the sky, said, "There's an airplane." No, two. The others didn't see the airplanes at first, but then saw them like two bright specks against the dark. "It's odd, we didn't see them," Susan said. They hadn't heard them. They went out with their ships, paddling in the water, getting very wet and enjoying themselves so much that they forgot all about the other things, till Kay suddenly saw a shadow running across the field in front of them, and, looking up, saw two airplanes circling silently overhead. "I say," he said, "look at the airplanes, absolutely silent." He didn't say so, but thought flashed into his mind, and the airplanes were there after them. But the other thought also flashed into the airplane, would dare land on the ground so rotten with the springs as low flying field. They'd stick them in the mud, and they tried that, he thought. "They're going to land," said Susan. "They're coming down by the copse there." "I'll bet they're after us," said Kay to himself. "Bring the ships to the banks." They saw the two airplanes come down into the big dry open field near the copse on the other side of the stream. They were some old willow trees where Kay was standing. He climbed up one of them. "There were 4 men getting out of the airplanes," he said. "They've got pistols and ropes, and they're coming this way. I think they would be wise to get out of the way." Do you think they're after us? Susan asked. I shouldn't wonder, said Kay. But it's all Tommy bought, Jemima said. Who'd be coming after us with pistols and ropes? They're probably mole catchers coming to set traps over the fields, now that the moles are working in the soft earth. That's a champion remark, Peter said. When did you ever hear of mole catchers coming up in airplanes with pistols? They're not men who kidnapped Punch and Judy, man, Kay said. That's the men who are up in front of that attack, the tall one with the white splash of paint on his leg. I bet they're after us. What shall we do? Susan said. Shall we run into the mill or the farm? They'd beat us to either of those, Kay said. Could we get down into the gully there? Susan said. The gully's full of water and flood, Kay said. Well, what can we do? Susan asked. Well, I've got here, Kay said, a sort of magic dodge. If we all hold hands while I touch this button on it, we shall all shrink into tiny little creatures, and then we'll pop on board our ships and go down the stream. They held their hands and twiddled the little button, and instantly each one of them felt a linger brighter than ever before. The earth seemed to shoot up and become enormous, and there they were clambering on board to the gigantic ships. They cast loose strings which tied them into the bank, and away they sailed downstream, around a bend, and on. All very well, Kay thought, as long as we can keep the midstream, but the flood like this, if we jam against some wreckage or a fallen tree, we should be sucked right under. Just as the ships went around the bend, Kay saw the 4 men coming and slide close to the bank. It was plain that each man had 2 long pistols stuck to his belt, and they were coiling lassos ready for the throw. The ships went gaily down the mill stream in the mill race, and the mill race came to a roaring and terrible torrent, down which ships plunged so swiftly that they were through it before they had time to be afraid. In an instant, they were quite water out of all the currents, gently rubbing the ship's sides against the roots of the elm tree, which grew in high bank. Kay and Peter hooked the anchors onto some of the roots in the tree. They secured all 3 ships alongside each other.